Did you ever have anybody say to you that Christianity or the church hid books of the Bible? Maybe something was removed. Did the church edit history? This needs to be answered. Because if that's true, if books were hidden, then everything changes. If the Bible was manipulated, then how could you trust any of it? That's not a small question. It's foundational. And a lot of people today are quietly carrying that suspicion. Here's what we've been told. There were lost gospels, secret teachings of Jesus, books that the church suppressed to control people. You've heard it in documentaries, podcasts, maybe from someone who sounds very confident. The idea sounds compelling because we don't like the thought of powerful institutions deciding truth. But here's the real question. Did that actually happen? Or does that narrative fall apart when you look at history? Let's slow it down. After Jesus rose from the dead and ascended, Christianity spread fast, with good reason. And it spread before there was a single bound Bible. There wasn't a leather book labeled New Testament. There were letters, eyewitness accounts, gospels written by men who either saw Jesus themselves or walked closely with those who did. Matthew, John, Mark through Peter, Luke through Paul and other witnesses. These writings began circulating across churches in different cities: Rome, Antioch, Corinth, Ephesus. And something interesting happened. Without a central committee, without a vote, without political control, these same writings kept showing up everywhere. They were copied, read publicly, taught from, because they traced back to the apostles. That's important. They weren't granted authority by the church. They had authority because of who wrote them. Now here's where the confusion begins. About 100 to 200 years later, new writings started appearing. Some claimed Jesus gave secret teachings to his select disciples. Some said salvation came through hidden knowledge. Some reshaped who Jesus was entirely. These weren't early eyewitness documents. They were later theological inventions. And the early Christians recognized that. They compared these new writings to what they had already received, and they saw the differences immediately. The theology didn't match. The timeline didn't match. The authorship didn't match. This wasn't suppression, it was discernment. Let me ask you something directly. If someone today wrote a book claiming to be the real gospel of the Antic, but I never wrote it, and it contradicted everything I've said publicly, would rejecting that book be censorship or common sense? That's essentially what was happening. The apostles had already died. New text appeared decades later claiming their names. The early church didn't hide them. They said, that's not what we were given. Now, fast forward a ways to 1945. A jar is discovered in the Egyptian desert near Nag Hammadi. Inside were ancient manuscripts, including texts like the Gospel of Thomas. Headlines later exploded. Lost Christian scriptures found. And for a moment, it felt like the conspiracy was confirmed. Except when scholars dated the documents. They weren't earlier than the New Testament. They were later. Much later. They didn't reveal a buried original Christianity. They revealed competing movements that emerged after Christianity was already established. The discovery didn't expose a cover-up. It confirmed that alternative spiritual ideas were already being rejected in the 2nd century. Now here's where we wrestle. What does the hidden books narrative do that makes it feel so believable? It exposes that we live in an age of suspiciousness of authority. Because secret knowledge feels powerful. Because we like the idea that truth was taken from us. It makes us feel like we're uncovering something. But here's the uncomfortable possibility. What if nothing was hidden? What if the gospel was public from the beginning? Jesus preached it publicly. He was crucified publicly. He rose publicly. Thousands saw him. The message was proclaimed openly. No secret initiation. No hidden layer. That's not how secret religions operate. That's how historical claims operate. This challenges something in us. Because if the truth wasn't hidden, then our hesitation isn't about missing information. It's about response. If Christ already did die for sin and rise again, then the issue isn't whether the church hid books. The issue becomes whether we're willing to confront what was never hidden at all. So what does that teach us? It teaches us that Christianity didn't emerge from a smoke-filled room centuries later. It grew organically from eyewitness testimony. It teaches us that not every ancient writing deserves equal authority. And it teaches us something deeper. Truth doesn't need secrecy to survive. It needs proclamation. And the proclamation was simple. Christ died for sinners. Christ rose again. Repent and believe. That message didn't require secret decoding. It required humility. What strikes me is this. I used to find the conspiracy versions more interesting. It felt dramatic. But the historical version is actually stronger, less mysterious, more solid, and more confronting. Because if nothing was hidden, then the invitation has been there the entire time. Let's end here. If you've wrestled with whether the Bible was manipulated, that question deserves honesty. But don't stop at suspicion. Look at the evidence. And then ask yourself the deeper question. If the gospel wasn't hidden, what am I going to do with it? Father, if there has been confusion in us, clear it. If there's been suspicion rooted in pride, humble us. If there's been honest doubt, meet us in it. And if your truth has been in front of us all along, give us courage to respond. So be it. May the truth set us all free.